This is Land of Havilah, Song of Songs 6. In the last chapter, the woman wasn't enthusiastic about receiving the husband, so he left, and she was ruined. Then she asked the daughters of Jerusalem to help find him because she was faint with love. They asked, "What's so good about him that he has that effect on you?" And she told them, "By praising him." Now the daughters of Jerusalem are motivated to help find him, and they ask, verse 1, "Where has your beloved gone, you fairest among women? Where has your beloved turned, that we may seek him with you?" Comment, there's an angelic overtone here that the daughters of Jerusalem represent angels. If anyone cares to take it that way, angels help us find God when we praise him. The woman answers the daughters of Jerusalem, verse 2, "My beloved has gone down to his garden, to the beds of spices, to feed in the gardens, and to gather lilies. I am my beloved's, and my beloved is mine. He browses among the lilies." Comment, verses 2 and 3 we just read, instantaneously the man has reappeared, and he's already loving the woman. This is a continuation of the allegory of God and us. When we're not enthusiastic about him, he withdraws, and when we are, he returns. In verse 3, during the love encounter, she said, "I am my beloved's, and he is mine," end quote. That was right on the tails of her praising him at the end of the last chapter. We're speaking God's love language. When we praise him, it draws him very near. Now in the coming verses, we hear the thoughts of the man as the love continues. Verse 4, "You're beautiful, my love, as Tirzah, lovely as Jerusalem, awesome as an army with banners. Turn away your eyes from me, for they've overcome me. Your hair is like a flock of goats that lie along the side of Gilead. Your teeth are like a flock of ewes which have come up from the washing, of which every one has twins. No one is bereaved among them. Your temples are like a piece of pomegranate behind your veil. There are 60 queens, 80 concubines, and virgins without number. My dove, my perfect one, is unique. She's her mother's only daughter. She's the favorite one of her who bore her. The daughters saw her and called her blessed, the queens and the concubines, and they praised her. Who is she who looks out as the morning, beautiful as the moon, clear as the sun, and awesome as an army with banners? I went down into the nut tree grove to see the green plants of the valley, to see whether the vine budded and the pomegranates were in flower. Without realizing it, my desire set me with my royal people's chariots. Return, return, Shulamite, return, return, that we may gaze at you. Why do you desire to gaze at the Shulamite as at the dance of Mahanaim?" Comment in verse 4, he says, "The woman is lovely as Tirzah, which was an ancient city in Samaria. It was part of Solomon's kingdom. The ruins of Tirzah are in a beautiful setting, surrounded by fertile fields, and all around that, mountains." In verse 4, the man says the woman is, quote, "awesome as an army with banners." We can envision an ancient army standing on a plain in formation. Each fighting unit of an army displays a banner, which is for the practical reason of keeping each unit together in battle. The banners are also symbols of pride, that everyone in the unit's committed to each other, will support each other, and won't let the banner fall. If the banner falls, the unit will be divided and destroyed. So it's important for the Lord's bride, the church, to be committed to each other. Otherwise, we're destroyed. When the Lord sees us in formation, every unit in place, with every person of every unit in place, supporting each other, it's an awesome sight to him. The church should be, as in verse 3, quote, "awesome as an army with banners," end quote. In verses 5 and 6, the husband repeats the familiar metaphors that her hair is like a flock of goats along the side of Mount Gilead. Her teeth are like shorn sheep, come up from the washing with none missing. Her temples are like pomegranates behind her veil. And then in the next verse, he has, in addition to her, 60 queens and 80 concubines. All the metaphors have the common feature of being multiples, multiple goats, sheep, queens, concubines, and when we slice open a pomegranate, multitudes of beautiful red seeds. Each metaphor is a reference to the beauty of the church in God's eyes. Together, we're one bride, but there are multitudes of us in the composition of it. When God looks at the church, he sees multiples. But more on the surface of the metaphors, her teeth are white with none missing, her temples are beautiful, and she is unique among all the queens and concubines. God appreciates each of us as unique, and in verse 9, the queens and concubines praised her, which means all of Solomon's other wives praised her, and daughters praised her, which means women in general praised her. That's to say, each of the members of the church appreciates all the others. There's no jealousy among us. There's no catfighting. And by the way, the husband didn't use any language to indicate that she was his favorite. He did go on and on about her beauty, but not to the exclusion of the rest. What he does say is that she's unique and that he's totally captivated by her, which in the metaphor of God and us is that God appreciates each of us uniquely. He's captivated by each of us. He speaks to each of us lovingly and individually, but let's not think he doesn't speak to all the others the same way. In verse 10, she looks out as the morning, beautiful as the moon, clear as the sun, awesome as an army with banners. The first part's also translated that she's looking down rather than out, which makes more sense according to his position in the rest of the chapter. The last two verses, verses 12 and 13, are very difficult to translate according to the NET translation notes, so it's not surprising that the various English translations are all over the place, such as the King James, ESV, NASB, NIV, and so on. But there's a reason the translation is difficult. Solomon was intentionally being vague because he was describing peak events. His experience is in verse 12 and hers is in verse 13. For his part, he was set with his royal people's chariots, and for her part, he watched as she engaged in a dance of Mahanaim. Mahanaim means two camps. The two of them engaged in the dance together. God said, "Eye has not seen, nor ear heard, neither has it entered into the heart of man what God has prepared for those who love him." 1 Corinthians 2:9. We don't know what God has prepared for us, but from the inkling of what we've already had, it's going to be good. Song of Songs 7 is next.